Hi, welcome to Chats Over Coffee with my yoga teacher, a show where a comedian talks to his yoga teacher over a hot beverage of sorts, not always coffee in reality, because caffeine messes with my head a bit. Should we get on with it then? Here is the show. I used to do a variety of things, and one of them was pest control, and pest control is really interesting because you find out loads of stuff about the evolution of insects and things. This is amazing, like bed bugs have got some sensor in them or something so they can detect the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere so that they know when someone's in a deeper sleep so they can come out and bite them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
And they can basically live for 6 months without anything. Like if they sort of like, or like the eggs or whatever, they won't hatch unless they know that there's like a food source nearby. So even if you vacate a property for 6 months with bed bugs in it, it's still not sorted out.
Oh my god!
Because they've just evolved to such a state where they give themselves the best chance of procreating, and which is what we all want to do, of course.
Dormice do something similar, don't they? They hibernate, and they can hibernate for over a year. They wake up, and if they decide that there isn't enough like stuff on the tree, they'll have a look around, and then they just go back to sleep. If they decide there's not going to be enough food that year, they just tell by the weather or whatever, and then they think, I'll just go back to sleep. Try again next spring. And then they just go to sleep for a year.
I wish we could have done that like this time last year. That would have been great.
Yeah, we're asking everyone to just hibernate for the year.
We'll wake you up when there's a vaccine. You know happy baby pose? You've heard of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure I'm ever doing that right.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what I'm concerned about. Do my shoulder blades and my hips need to be grounded when I'm doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Because I'm not sure I can get them both to the floor. I think usually my shoulders end up sort of hovering a bit when I'm holding my leg or foot.
Right. So I normally try to say, hug your knees in towards your chest. So that then you're in a little ball, but your head and shoulders always stay down on the floor. So we're not tight. We're never tight in that pose. But you're not snug. You're just like the knees are in towards the chest. And then you bring the feet up and hold behind the knees. But you keep the knees exactly where they're at. So the upper body hasn't changed.
Okay.
And then you take them wide. And that's your happy baby.
So my hands don't need to be on my feet then, do they?
No, not at all. No, I would only say to take your hands to your feet if your arms are long enough to reach your feet without changing anything. So if just straightening your arms means you could grab your feet, then you could take that variation. But to be honest, that's some really deep hip flexion. The knee has to be nearly against your chest to unless you have really long arms.
So I think that's what's happening. I think when I'm reaching up for my feet, I think my shoulders are then coming off the ground.
Yeah, I wouldn't bring your shoulders up. I just hold behind the knees.
You just feel like it should be a really easy thing to do. If babies can do it, why?
Babies are a lot more flexible than us.
Yeah, and they can swim, can't they, as well?
Babies can't swim.
Yeah, they can.
No, they can't.
Sure they can.
What?
Okay, next baby you come across, chuck them in a lake.
No, do not chuck babies in lakes.
That'll be fine, honestly.
This is new. I've never heard of a baby being able to swim.
They can do. You never seen the cover of Nevermind?
He's got floaties on, doesn't he?
No, he
doesn't. You're right. He doesn't have floaties on, does he? Oh, creepy picture. No, babies can't swim.
They can swim. They can swim. Like when they're newborn, they can swim, but then they very quickly, I think, stop being able to do it.
Do you mean like my dad always said that if you blow in a baby's face, they'll hold their breath. Like, they have natural reactions to not breathing. So do you mean, like, they can swim as in they can hold their breath, paddle around or wiggle, or... Because they're not going to consciously make the decision to move to the surface and take a breath, surely.
I don't know, but they can... I'm sure they can swim. Like, if you dangle a dollar bill into a swimming pool, then I think they chase it.
I don't think anyone is allowed to test this theory, and that's why
they must have done it once. That's someone whose career peaked too early, that baby. I mean, they're never going to top that, are they? That's a great album, though. I remember the first time I heard that was on a coach trip to France, and the guy next to me had it on his Walkman or Discman and was like, do you want to hear this? And I was like, wow. Like, it was just... I mean, I was, defining sort of
That is Nirvana, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember the picture, but that does go with the Nirvana, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I'm just making sure I'm not connecting with another band.
It's very rare that I can remember the first time I heard a piece of music and it's really like a seminal, like nothing was the same again.
Oh, that's great.
Do you like Nirvana with your shouty sort of, you like that sort of thing, don't you? Sure. All that rah, rah, rah stuff.
I remember the first time I listened to Nightwish. And this was a long time ago, so they still had their opera singer.
I don't even know who they are.
Nightwish, yeah. They, like I said, now they don't have an opera singer, but originally their main singer, she was an opera singer, so she sang lovely, gorgeous operatic style music over top of the kind of folk metal. It's really moving. It's epic. It's when, it's like epic style music. When you're like, whoa. Like not some music you dance to.
I don't know what that is, so maybe I'll look it up.
I remember the first time I heard Nightwish though, because that was similar. It was like one of my friends was like, "Here, I burnt you a CD," and I was like, "Oh wow, listen to all this music. This is great."
Music's good. Yeah.
I felt like the odd one out growing up. I think all my friends and all my friends' families, like they all, especially because I was homeschooled, my mom did loads of stuff with us, don't get me wrong, but just music just wasn't, because obviously they didn't have a passion for it. It wasn't something they tried to pass on to us. But like I was definitely the odd one out. Like all my friends had music things and I was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, sometimes I like listening to the radio. I like certain songs, ones you can sing along to or dance or whatever. But like, that was the scope of my music appreciation in my teen years, I think, which is a bit, I want to say shallow, but that makes it sound mean. But you know what I mean? It just wasn't very deep appreciation, was it? It's just like, yeah, radio.
Just got captured by it, I think like when I don't make myself sound special, as in like I was like left out of everything and like music became my friend or that sort of thing. But you know what I mean? Like you just, I don't know. You listen to songs about being a loser and you think, oh, it's another loser. I feel pretty,
hey, I'm a loser too.
I feel pretty comforted by it. It's stupid, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the best music and stuff and is written like when you're a teenager is like stuff that angry people that feel left out because that's what you feel like that and you're like, it's not just me.
Yeah.
So I never liked pop music. I mean, I like some pop music, like, but more so now than I did then. Like some like Madonna's got some bangers, and when I was growing up, the pop music was awful anyway. It's like the Spice Girls and stuff.
I did go through a Spice Girls phase because all American girls went through a Spice Girls phase, I think.
I don't think it's okay to like the Spice Girls. Never. But I did always hate them, even when I was like, I don't know, 8 or 10 or whatever the hell I was when they were about. And I'm moaning about how much I hated them to like a friend of mine at school who secretly liked them. And eventually he came out and said, I've got something to tell you. I actually do quite like the Spice Girls. And I was just like... No, this is just me then.
Did you have any reasoning behind it? Because obviously it's young you were young to have reasons, if that makes sense. Sometimes we just don't like things, so we don't like them, which is fine. But I mean,
I just saw through their bullshit. It's not really girl power, is it? They voted for the Conservative government in 1997 as well.
And you knew that when you were 10.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about the audition thing I did. Is there any point talking about that?
Talking about what?
My audition.
Oh, yeah. How'd it go?
I don't know how it went.
Well, I mean, how do you feel your recordings went? How about that?
I don't know. I just don't know why I've been asked to do it, to be honest. I mean, this must be the first time it's happened in a couple of years. Very, very periodically, I get asked if I do an audition for something. And never really... I mean, I said I don't want to do adverts, so I never get put forward for adverts. So that's a big thing that's cast.
I would have thought they would go for actors, not comedians, if you just want someone in your advert. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't understand why maybe they think comedians have got range or something.
Maybe.
I don't think of the adverts being especially funny. I mean, I don't watch adverts anyway. I mean, this is one of the best things about being able to pause live TV. Is just being able to like start something a little bit late by pausing it, and then when the adverts are on, fast forwarding, or when the adverts are on, pausing, going to do something for a couple of minutes, make tea, whatever. Just like pausing live TV has been an amazing thing, I think.
Me too. Brilliant. I bet the people who are advertising don't agree, but...
No, well, screw them. I mean, like, I'm not after their work anyway. I don't want their dollar. I love watching snooker on double speed or something sometimes. Just like, pause it So I can miss some boring bits. Just watch it twice the speed, and
there you go.
It's great. I love it. I feel like I'm saving time, like I'm in credit and everything.
I've done that with some of my catch-up classes. When I've done some of my online classes, I've missed them, and then I load them back up. And then the other day I was like, oh God, it's so slow. And then I went, wait a minute. And then I changed the speed of the recording to be like twice the speed, and then everyone was talking really, really fast. It was great. I was like, haha.
You didn't do the class at the same speed as that, did you? Like, if you want to do a faster yoga class, you could just do...
Just do my class, but put it up 1.5.
Yeah. Like if I'm doing one of your gentle classes, I can make it a proper vinyasa class.
Turn an hour gentle class into a 30-minute vinyasa flow.
30-minute hell. Yeah.
I don't think that would work though, because your breathing would be like...
We'll see about that. I'll let you know.
Oh dear.
I once got asked to do something, and I don't know what the advert was for, but I was really angry about it because it was to be the part of a 30-year-old loser guy that still lives in his parents' like spare room and plays computer games all the time.
Oh.
And I was like, the email just made me so angry because I guess obviously it's from some casting director, and they were saying, "Oh, we think Peter will be absolutely perfect for this," and I was just like, he'd be perfect to play this virgin. I just got so angry about it, and I thought, even if they pay you good money for it, I don't want that out there. Like, I don't want to be like playing towards. I mean, I'm self-deprecating as an act, but I'm in control of it. Like, I'm not giving it away to someone else to make a mockery of the way I look. I don't even think I think I'm quite cool in real life, but. Yeah, you didn't even laugh at that, so you agree.
No, I do agree. You're quite cool in real life. I was just thinking, I was wondering around the context of why they wanted this loser that lives in their parents' basement.
So the other two parts I've been asked to audition for are for kids TV role things, and one of them I don't think ever got made, but I was rubbish at it. And this one is I'm also going to be rubbish at it, but I have done a video audition where I had to read 3 scenes out, and it's for the part of someone that's dead. It's like a skull. I've got prominent cheekbones, so maybe I would look quite good as a skull. I don't know, but I don't know. It won't happen. But
well, not with that attitude.
Well, I've done it now, so I don't believe in free will, do I? So it's just like it's going to happen. It's going to happen, or it's not. So I've done what I was always going to do, and if they want you, they want you.
Well, hopefully, yeah. We'll see what happens. Sounds like fun though.
When you look at stuff you wrote a long time ago, I don't know, you start seeing it differently and you kind of fix it a bit. Because if you're working on something for a while, you get this tunnel vision where you just need to give yourself distance, and then you suddenly realise what's wrong with it, usually. Just fresh eyes, basically. So I'm doing a lot of that, feeling like I've fixed stuff, but then it'll turn out that I haven't, and it's still rubbish. But
well, it's like you said, anytime you look at something, you can always redo things over and over and over again, can't you? And change it, and tweak it here, and tweak it there, and tweak it here, and then at some point you're going to have to say it's done.
Someone, I thought it was Leonard Cohen that said it, but it might have actually been Da Vinci, and said that art is never finished, it's only abandoned. That's a good phrase, I think. It's not that you don't care, it's just like, you just have to draw a line at some point and say, yeah, that's as good as it was going to be. I
mean, that's kind of what I feel like with any writing, even if it's like not necessarily art. And you read it, like if you're going to send an email and then you write it and you think, oh, I'll just change that word. Oh, I'll just change that. Oh, I'll just reword that a little bit differently. Oh, I'll just... Before you know it, you spend like an hour on one email that just says, oh, thanks very much, bye. Like I've thought about writing a book. I'm in no rush because I read a lot of fantasy. I've got a million stories rolling around in my head, and some of them connect and some of them don't. So that's one of my dreams. Maybe when I'm 40, I'll sit down and I'll write a book. And I'll have to get a couple of my friends to read it because I'm crap at that,
If you need it gagged up, let me know.
Because I've also thought about doing stuff about yoga, but I have held back a little bit because I find that I'm still really growing. So even though I've been teaching for quite a while, I still find that I'm learning new things and I'm changing my mind about certain things. And I might find something that I taught a while back and decide like I don't like the way I was teaching that, and I might completely let that go and teach it a completely different way. So I'm hesitant to write like a yoga book either because I feel like I'm not quite there yet to really cement that into. But then on the other side, there's a chance that you'd write a book and nothing would ever happen.
Well, most people that write books, nothing happens.
Exactly.
Most people that write a song, it doesn't get in the charts, does it?
So you have to write for yourself. So it's fine if you want to do that, but you have to make sure you're doing that because you want to, and that maybe something will come out of it. But if it doesn't, like you're saying, you're not attaching your happiness to that. So like in the next 4 years, I'll be a senior yoga teacher, cross fingers, because that requires hours of teaching rather than years.
And they don't even need to be good hours today. Just...
Well, every experience is a learning experience. But I feel like within the next 4 years, quite a bit of steadily change will happen. And then I would be really happy to take on some other things, some new things, like a project, like maybe trying to do a book, or, working with a studio.
Our book.
Our book. Oh, no. This is going to be weird.
Oh, no. If it gets made into a kid's series, maybe I could play something in it.
No. I don't think it would be made into a kid's series. Do you read much fantasy?
No, not really. I've read like Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings, basically.
Any C.S. Lewis?
When I was a kid, I used to read them, and then when I reread it when I was older, I was quite angry about how much he'd ripped off the Bible. so I was like, nah, I'll stop doing this. Because it is just completely an allegory, isn't it? I'm trying to think. I've got my bookshelf above me, and I'm trying to just think, is there anything that is fantasy?
I quite like it because I feel like I can lose myself completely in it. Like, it's completely fake. There's no real aspect. I mean, other than like emotions and humans or something, there's no real connection to the real world. And I feel like that's really nice. I really like that escape.
Do you read Terry Pratchett's books? Because people
I
like
haven't,
him, don't they?
But they are on my list when I finish The Wheel of Time.
I think I would probably read some Terry Pratchett because I feel what I've read about them feels like it might be sort of like but there's just so much of it as well. I find that quite daunting. So if someone's written like 40 books, you're like, oh god.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm in two minds about it. I think that if one world, it doesn't necessarily have to be one story, but if one world has a lot of books, that actually appeals to me because I feel like it's never going to end. And that would be nice.
Do you know, actually, I felt really, like, the last time I watched the Lord of the Rings films a few years ago, I felt so sad at the end of the third one. Not because I was so caught up in the emotion of the actual ending, because that film's got about 5 endings anyway, the last Lord of the Rings film. It's ridiculous. It just blacks out and then, there's more. It wasn't that. It was just... the ending of a saga just sometimes makes me feel really sad that it's like that's closed now and I have to start all over again.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I have had that feeling several times when I've finished something, like when I've finished something that's been. I mean, it took me years to watch The West Wing, for example, and when I finally got to the end of that, I was like, oh, that's gone now. That's like I was like. Now I've got to find something else to fill this emptiness in my life, What I should do is I should just never, ever watch the final episode of things, or just never read the final pages of, like, stuff I really like.
I don't know, though, but I think the idea of something ending, even though it's really sad, it's really realistic, isn't it? Especially with books, they tend to end when someone dies, don't they? Rather they die of old age or whatever, but yeah, like they tend to end. Well, I suppose especially with fantasy books, they tend to end when it ends. There's nothing else that could possibly happen, kind of thing. That's when it ends. And if there's something else that could happen, it's not over yet, so just hang on. But yeah, I know what you mean. I always feel like it kind of triggers a bit of a nostalgia almost, or something. Like you feel like that's gone and you're never going to get it back, because you can't read it for the first time again. You could reread it, but you can't read it for the first time because that's already happened. It kind of reminds you of like when you think about going home or something, and it's like, oh, well, home is a time, not a place. So when you go home, it's not really home. You go back and it's like, oh yeah, well, this is the cinema that I went to as a teenager, but things are different and people are different. It's that kind of thing. Yeah. I definitely felt that with Lord of the Rings because it all came out while I was a teenager, so it was massive, absolutely massive. people would go and see it in the cinema multiple times, not just like 3 or 4, but like 20, 30 times, going to see it at midnight. And
we did that for the first one. I didn't do it for the second and third so much, but the first one. In fact, one of the times I went to go and see it was because my friend got asked out on a date by a girl, and he didn't really want to go out with her, so he invited me and pretended that he didn't think that she'd asked him on a date. And I didn't clock until like halfway through the film, and I was like, weird that I'm sitting between these two and she's looking upset. And,
oh my gosh, that's so mean.
It is mean, isn't it?
Mean for you. I mean, like, he was being mean to you and her.
No, he's a despicable person. I think we're still friends, but,
Oh, what a shame.
I'm friends, most of the friends I've made over the years have been despicable people that are actually nice, really,
Yeah.
but they are terrible people, so...
The other day I did a Zumba class on YouTube, so nothing fancy. No
was not a live thing. That
was not live. No. Just on YouTube, just dancing around, wanted to have fun, wanted to get my heart rate up, because I just realised, like, it's been ages and I haven't really probably had a proper cardio workout in quite a long time. So I thought, let's dance. So I turned on, and I've never done Zumba before in my life, so I turned this Zumba class on and was like, right, I'm going to do this 110%, And I'm like so focused on this man and in the video trying to copy what he's doing, and then I literally remember going, all right, we must be near the end now. And I paused it, and it was only 6 minutes. And I was like, what the fuck? How did that happen? So basically, the class near killed me.
Was it an hour?
No, it was only 23 minutes, something like that.
Okay, right.
But it was fun, and it's what I wanted. What I wanted to get out of it was just to move, so I was happy. Like, I wasn't, like, embarrassed by the fact that I can't dance. I know I can't dance.
Or sing.
Now you know why I'm not an actress.
No.
So, I don't know, I just thought it was a lot of fun, but I just remember I was so concentrated the whole time, and I haven't been that concentrated on something like that, like how to move, in such a long time, because I just haven't done anything new. And it was actually really fun just to be a beginner again, Like, if you'd never been to a yoga class before and then you went to one, very few things would have to go wrong, or a lot would have to go wrong for you to say that it was a bad class. You wouldn't judge the teacher as being good or bad if you'd only ever been to one class with one teacher. You'd just be like, okay, that's yoga, And I just think that mindset is it's a little bit liberating or whatever, if you just say like, oh, yeah, that's what that is, without any sort of judgment. It's quite nice, really. There's no need to make an opinion about something, is basically it, isn't it?
Because you're naive. Right.
Kind of. But I just think in general, it's more just like deciding that you don't have to decide.
So you can suspend judgment, I suppose, is what you...
It's quite a peaceful thing. Like, there's no need to decide if something's good or bad. You don't have to decide that. But also on the other side, you, to some extent, you shouldn't. Like, it's not for you to judge, especially people, unless you're an expert and that is what you do, and whatever field you're working on. Then maybe you could say, oh, I'll critically analyze this. But other than that, there's not really. It's just, you might as well just step back completely from that.
And is that a lesson for life then? Or?
Yeah.
You think?
Absolutely. You should come at a lot of things with that beginner's mindset, so that you
couldn't do that with stand-up comedy at all.
I know, maybe not with stand-up.
I couldn't be like, oh, that's actually good, when it's just like no one's laughing and it's just hack boring stuff. I couldn't be like, who am I to judge? That's something with a definitive sort of. I mean, that's not. No, in fact, everything you just said is rubbish. Isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I'm just shooting from the hip here, and just like being devil's advocate, or just messing about, or just having a conversation. Don't take anything I say seriously. But I sort of think sometimes it's like, things are a matter of taste, aren't they? And who are you to say that if something is not to your liking, that it's rubbish? You can't say that. You can only really say it's not for me. Like, I do not watch Mrs. Brown's Boys. No. Okay, that may be a massive shock to any listeners, but I think probably if you asked me what I thought of it, I'd say it was rubbish. But in some ways, like, who am I to say that? Because it's clearly not for me, is it?
Yeah.
because there's clearly enough people in the UK for that to be an enormous success. It's the biggest comedy show on television, like it or not. So I can't really say it's rubbish, but there will be stuff that is genuinely rubbish that nobody will like, and we'd all have a right to say that is bad comedy, because no one has ever laughed at it, and no one has, So I do agree with subjectivity to some extent, but I do agree that there's a standard.
That's like saying if you were gonna. So my idea is like coming from a beginner's mindset. Like if you'd never had an orange before in your life, and then someone gave you a piece of orange, you wouldn't just shove a big massive piece in your mouth. You'd be like, "What is it?" And then you kind of like take a little taste, and then you'd be like, and then you take a bigger bite, and then you'd try it. But if someone gave you some poo and told you to eat it, you'd be like, there's the line there, because it's not edible, it's not food. So to some extent...
That's not a fair... If you've never seen poo before...
No, your body would tell you not to eat it. It would be dangerous. Yeah, you would get instinctual reactions to not to eat that. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
definitely. So what I just mean is like there's always going to be something that stops you at some point where there's a line that you just don't cross. But if it's the first time you've ever seen something or the first time you've ever tasted something, you would come at it from a like, what's it like, and then maybe step back. And then you would either make a judgment or not. And if it was the first time you've ever had any orange, you can't say all oranges are bad because you've tried one. What if that one was rotten? Or what if it wasn't very sweet?
But then what will happen is you'll eat a lot of oranges or do a lot of Zumba or watch a lot of comedy, and then you'll become very jaded as to what's good and what's bad, and your standards will change. And so you won't have the naive joy of like, wow, it's an orange for the first time. Like you can eat a very, very average orange early on in your orange eating life and think it's amazing. But your perception and judgment will change after a period of time when you're more experienced with oranges, and there will come a time when only the best oranges are the ones for you. And what's wrong with that? That's just the way things work. Like if I used to like Peter Kay when I was younger, right? But I don't now, because I feel like it's not comedy that excites me at all. Maybe I would have liked Mrs. Brown's Boys when I was, I don't know, 7.
Yeah.
But I'm just jaded to it now.
Yeah, but I think the problem is you can get, like you're saying, like maybe you decide as you grow older what you like and what you don't like based on your experiences. But surely there's a point then that you feel like you've experienced so much that you're just sick of it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's definitely happens with comedy, because there's not very much I like now. And I watch audiences enjoy it, and I think, well, I can see what's coming a mile off, and so many jokes seem really obvious to me. And you might get that when you watch other people doing yoga classes. I don't know. You're probably watching it in a different way to a student would, I
and specifically with yoga, I can't help but think about like how I would teach it in a sense or something a little bit. I try not to, obviously, when I'm participating in a class, but you can't help but think like, that's not very clear, but there's little kind of like just almost like we were saying before about not being able to control your thoughts. I'll let it go. I don't necessarily stand up and go, excuse me, you've done it all wrong. I would never do anything like that. But you can't help it if thoughts come in that you think, and to be honest, I do that for myself. If I end up actually watching any of the recordings that I teach, I would have the exact same thoughts when I'm watching myself. Oh, that wasn't very clear. Or, oh, I mumbled a bit then. Or whatever.
Do the same thing. And but of course, you'll know as well, like your students and anyone in an audience will not really care. They'll say, oh, that was really good. They won't think of the 2 or 3 things you messed up. But they'll be the only things you think about.
Well, I tend not to be bothered by stuff like that, to be honest.
Well, good for you. But for me, that's what happens.
I know a lot of people really stick on those things. But unless I really screw up, I tend not to let that kind of thing bother me.
So I guess what you're saying, it's quite nice to go in with sort of a beginner's naivety and stuff like that. But I don't know, it's like looking back and losing your virginity again, isn't it? It's like, you didn't know any better, did you? If you look back now, you'd think, oh, it's awful.
Oh, dear.
That's what you're going to be thinking about when you look at that Zumba class. If you get really good at Zumba, you're thinking, this guy does not know what he's doing. That's just what happens, I suppose. But yeah, so it's nice to be naive.
Yeah.
But then you become experienced and jaded.
Well, I suppose the other thing as well is like, it's just to give it all your attention is the other point. When you're brand new to something and someone says, follow my steps, and you have absolutely no idea what they're going to do, you're like, bing, you're so focused that nothing else is, because you're trying to do that. I think that focus is also a good thing to have. You know, if you've done it 100 times, if you come to a yoga class and you've done your sun salutations 100 times, and I say, let's do some sun salutations, and then I toss something in without telling you, half the people end up where they think they should be, because technically that's the next step, but I've tossed in an extra thing. Half the people listen, half the people don't, or whatever. That's the difference between coming at it from like a beginner's mindset and just listening and following, and coming at it from a I know what I'm doing mindset. I'm not saying that sometimes you just get into the flow, you're just going for it. I'm not saying you're not listening properly, but I just mean like, there's a difference between that really focused concentration of really trying to, get it right in a sense, or follow the steps, and then that one where you're like, oh, I'm confident in what I'm doing. I'm just going to go for it. And neither one's right or wrong. I'm not saying that it's wrong to be confident in what you're doing. I just mean it's just a different way of thinking about it. And sometimes it's nice to flip back to being a beginner. I used to have a teacher that would say, right, do this sun salutation as if it's the first time you've ever done one.
People don't ask you that in sex, do they?
No.
Do like you don't have a clue. That's what I want.
Oh dear.
Right. You better go because you got to charge your mic up.
Yes, I do.
So.
Okay, well, I will talk to you later then.
Yeah, thanks. I hope you're not too... what a terrible goodbye that was. I'm rushed because you got to go. So I'm just...
See you later.
See ya. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and then you won't miss any of the future episodes. There isn't one next week if you're listening in, when these actually come out, but we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. You can follow me on Instagram at @PeterBrush_. You can follow Kayla on Instagram at Kayla McCormack Yoga. We're also both on Twitter. Just look for our names. If you've been enjoying the show for a while, great. Thanks for sticking around. Please do tell other people about the show if you enjoy it, because that way we can find other people that will also hopefully enjoy it. I assume you'd only recommend it to people that you think would like it. I do ask this every week, so you might hear this every week and think, yeah, I've already done that like 12 times. And if you have, you're an absolute hero. Right, see you next time. Thanks, as ever, and goodbye.